Hey there, it's Faith Talk Live. I'm Dan Ratcliffe,
And I'm Ezra Ortiz.
and we are so excited to be joined once again by Max McLean from Fellowship for Performing Arts. He's coming this weekend to the First Center at Georgia Tech with a new show called Further Up and Further In. Max, thanks for joining us again.
You're welcome.
All the way from New York City, and you're coming down this weekend. And this is kind of a new show called Further Up and Further In about C.S. Lewis. Let's talk about that. Tell us about the show and what we can expect.
Yeah, it's a sequel to the show that we brought to Atlanta several years ago and also made a movie of called The Most Reluctant Convert. When Lewis was converted in 1931, it wasn't obvious. He was 32 years old. He was an adult Christian. It wasn't obvious he would become who he became, the great C.S. Lewis, one of the most, if not the most influential Christian thinker of the 20th century and beyond. And this play looks at the rise of Lewis. Many people get converted; they don't become C.S. Lewis. So, how did that happen? And the most important thing was what convinced C.S. Lewis of the divinity of Christ. That's the key, because he made this very important statement that Christianity should be presented simply and solely because it is true. If it is untrue, no honest person will want to believe it. If it is true, every honest person will want to believe it. It all hinges on Jesus. And he became perhaps the 20th century and the 21st century's most influential and effective evangelist, because he really focused on that question. And he framed his whole apologetics, his whole philosophy, his whole theology on that question. And as a result, the BBC gave him a huge audience to deliver wartime talks that were, they were listened to by millions during the war, that would later become Mere Christianity. He made this really amazing statement. He said, the appeal of these talks was that a believed idea is they were spoken. The appeal of these talks is that they were spoken from a position of belief. A believed idea feels different than an idea that's not believed. I believe that there is but one God and that Jesus Christ is his only son. I believe in prayer, in judgment, in the second coming, in heaven and in hell. And he said, when bombs destroy our homes, talk of Armageddon no longer seems fanciful as in this weak piping time of peace. And of course, he gave these talks during wartime Britain, where 1,000 German planes would fly up the Thames, bombing everything in sight. London was an ocean of flames, lighting up the sky 40 miles away. So he got their attention.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We, Dan and I were just discussing before you came on. We were discussing just all the different works that we've read of C.S. Lewis. Such profound work. Screw Tape Letters still has such an impact. Like you said, Mere Christianity is a collection of those BBC radio talks that he was giving that were listened to by millions of people. Obviously, still has such profound relevancy today. So maybe dive into a little bit of, we know that C.S. Lewis still is relevant, but maybe why is he relevant? What's the purpose of the things that he said?
Well, as I mentioned just a few moments ago, Christianity should be presented simply and solely because it is true. And he focused on that. He said, he actually complained. He said, foolish preachers confuse the issue by offering Christianity because it is comforting or good for society or something of that sort. Those who oppose it want to talk about the income of bishops or the Spanish Inquisition. In either case, you must bring the question back to the real point. Is he who he says he is? If his statements are false, Christianity is of no importance. If true, it is of infinite importance. So he really focuses on that. The one thing it can't be is moderately important. And as a result of that, it colored everything he said about everything else, about prayer, about the second coming of Christ, which he had really profound thoughts about that, about heaven. I don't think anyone has ever given a more clear and a compelling picture of the beatific vision.
Hmm.
And so serious Christians look to him, not just for comfort, but for truth. And his comment is, if you find truth, you'll get comfort in the end. If you look for comfort, you'll get neither.
Yeah.
Not truth nor comfort. And I think that's why Lewis is so relevant today.
Yeah. We're talking with Max McLean from Fellowship for Performing Arts. He's going to be at the First Center at Georgia Tech with Further Up and Further In, the heart and mind of C.S. Lewis. So the title, Further Up and Further In. So are we going further in, as you say, into his mind to see what made him tick and whatnot? And you talk about, like how did Hitler's charm influence the writing of the Screw Tape Letters? Talk a little bit more about what we will see from Lewis here.
Yeah, well, it is a one of a kind theatrical event. It's got dazzling multimedia. It's a dazzling multimedia experience using Lewis's own words to really show how it wasn't so much about going further up, further into Lewis. It's about further up, further into God.
Yeah.
And how to get, because, he says, if you look further up, further in, do you simply get atoms colliding in skulls where everything is meaningless? It's all a result of physics and biochemistry, or is there more like a mind than anything else we know? That has purposes, looks one thing over another, and made us partly to make creatures like itself, and who have free will, and to make choices, or is it just a matter of physics and biochemistry acting in a determinist way that none of us know? And Lewis really marries his Christian theology with science, with philosophy. So it's so all-encompassing. And what this piece, Further Up, Further In, which he uses primarily, that's a phrase from The Last Battle. He only uses it in that book. He uses it 14 times in that book, but it's such a tremendous idea and so fitting for Lewis that we used it as a way to help others get further up, further in. And Lewis is a guide for so many people. I mean, we do need guides to help us really navigate the Christian faith in a way that is compelling, that's meaningful, that makes us want to go further up, further in. I, personally, I've been doing this work for 40 years. And the response to it, we just had a premiere in Dallas. And this is a very new show. I've never had responses to our work more deep and profound than this, and I think it's probably the most evangelistic work I've ever done, and therefore it's probably the most important work I've ever done.
Right.
Wow, that's awesome. I had the privilege of the last time we spoke to you. Actually, I had the privilege of getting to see The Great Divorce when you were last in town. And that was, my wife and I went. It was phenomenal, to say the least. How you just went on and you just said that this might be the most evangelistic work. This might be the most most important work that you've done. What's different from some of your previous work? How is this different from some of your previous work? Because thinking back to The Great Divorce, there was a lot that I understood that I was like, wow, man, I'm chewing on it. We were talking about it on the way home, So how is maybe this different for folks?
Yeah, I think the previous work that we've done, Screw Tape Letters, The Great Divorce, even The Most Reluctant Convert, was based primarily on a single work. The Most Reluctant Convert was primarily Surprised by Joy, whereas this work is based on so many of his works. It's a bigger compilation. I would say perhaps the most significant work. I mean, the most the biggest portion of it probably comes from Mere Christianity, where Lewis gets very, very personal and very profound there. But that was a springboard to look at many other works that I think perhaps clarified his point in Mere Christianity. It also, the central part of the book, the central part of the play, is a correspondence that's acted out on stage of two people, one an atheist asking Lewis about Christianity, and Lewis's response to him, which brought him to Christ. And Lewis's evangelism is so different than what we normally hear. It wasn't that he believed that rational arguments bring people to Christ, but he did believe that the lack, if you don't defend it or you don't explain it, Christianity that is, if you don't think it's worth explaining or defending, then it simply disappears. That message gets across. So it's not just about as important as hospitality is, as important as friendship evangelism is. Ultimately, the gospel needs to hold up as true, and that is the hope, to give a reason for the hope that is within us. So that's where Lewis's focus is, and he doesn't negotiate the truth at all, and that's very confidence building. It's very encouraging to all of us, particularly in our day and age where Christianity has really taken a beating publicly, in the marketplace of ideas. Not that it's never taken a beating in the past, and it's always survived it. Almost historically, it comes out stronger at some point. It may be that, as Jesus said, you shake the dust off your feet as you leave as a testimony against them, and then you take the gospel someplace else. And that's certainly happening in the third world, certainly happening in Asia and South America. But his word will not return void. And I see this as really important because I think it speaks to our current cultural moment.
Max McLean, boy, we sure appreciate the way that you take the gifts that God has given you and use them for his glory. And it's just so evident in all of the productions that you do and just in your heart. And so we appreciate all that you do. We're looking forward this Saturday and Sunday, the 5th at 4:00 and the 6th at 3:00 at the First Center for the Arts at Georgia Tech. There's still a few tickets left, you said, Max. You think there's at least a few left?
I think there's like 100 seats roughly in each show. Okay. Yeah, it's about 1,000-seat house. Okay, it's about 100 seats left in each show, but it's doing very well. We always love coming to Atlanta. We have lots of friends in Atlanta. One of our favorite places to come, and look forward to being there again this weekend.
Well, the shows are always phenomenal, so check it out. You can go to fpatheater.com to get more information and then get a link to the ticket to where to get the tickets. Max, we appreciate it. Look forward to the next time that you come back to town, too, because we just love talking to you.
Well, delighted. Thanks so much, guys.
We appreciate it. It's Max McLean, and you are listening to Faith Talk Live. I'm Dan Ratcliffe.
And I'm Ezra Ortiz.
We'll be back.